Hi, welcome to the Sprint 101 review. Sprint ended on December 17th. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll be going over the sprint statistics. Kara will give us an update on the community. Dan will go over the UI. This will be Dan's last sprint review report. Dan's retiring at the end of the year. He's entering that phase of life where every day is a Saturday, so I wish you the best and thanks for all your hard work and leadership in the UI over these years. Then we'll let Julian and Adam fill us in on providers. Tina will go over Automate. Joe V's going to give us updates on platform, and Chris will talk about documentation. Next slide, please. So we had about 280 PRs merged, or exactly 280 PRs merged. The bulk of those were in the UI Classic. There's back to Dan again. Then followed up by the integration test, and it's good to see the amount of work going into the test area. You know, being a large, complex code base, the more tests we have, the better. Next slide, please. And we've, out of the PRs that were merged, about 280, I said, we've gone back up a little bit from last time. We're staying in that range of 250 to 350, so we're kind of basically that's our area right now. Next slide, please. And we had again about 25% of the PRs were in test area, and bug fixing came in with about 25% also, followed by enhancements. So the top two being test and bug fixes are a good thing. Next slide, please. In the overall repository health, we had a nice uptick in the Amazon provider in the coverage, and then also the UI Classic, the nice decrease in the number of other issues. Next slide, please. On to Carol.
Thanks. So for the community side, we had a couple of releases. First is the Hammer Release Candidate 2, and we also have Governor Release 7 released over the last couple of weeks. And on the blog post, David has contributed a really interesting one on reinventing the proxy for our remote consoles. So these are all on the website. You can take a look. As for events in the upcoming year, I'll give more details in the next sprint, but just to mention that we will have a ManageIQ booth at DEF CONF in Brno in the end of January, and we'll probably share a booth with the RDO community at FOSDEM, which is in Brussels, in the beginning of February. Anyway, I'll share more details in the upcoming sprint. And that's it for community. Thanks. And the next slide, please.
Right. For the user interface, kind of typical sprint. I have PRs. Mostly in bug fixes, although significant work in tech debt refactoring and testing upstream on master. Some of the bugs were fixing a setting in the tenant area where the options for root tenants are different than others. That had to be taken care of. The grid tile list per page defaults were not being enforced or honored, I should say. Also, the set ownership, when you were doing multiple targets, was sometimes resetting. You could set user or group. It was sometimes setting the user group to none. That was taken care of. Only if you want it to be set to none, you can do that. In the generic object definitions, when you had a duplicate, you're trying to add a duplicate name instead of giving you a message, it would just blow up. So that's taken care of. On the service UI. In the service details view, we were not confirming the fact that the retirement actually went through. So basically just duplicated the same modal pop-up that was being used in the list view. In V2V, for conversion hosts, you're able to add one, but you were able to add it with a zero migration. So that was taken care of to limit it to, you have to have at least one. Next slide. Go. Oh, okay, there it is. Added a internationalization to default validation messages in the data-driven forms. Also, a change to let the tooltips honor the new lines. Security list view added the cloud tenant name, and in V2V, a couple enhancements, basically around the missing RSA keys for OSP providers. So you see a warning, and then also you can cancel plans and redo them once you fix the RSA key. Next slide. All right, so this is the data-driven form validation messages. So there on the bottom of the red one there, you can see that's been converted to language choices. Next slide. Tooltips, you can put in a new line, so you don't have everything just running together. Next slide. New column, cloud tenant. Next slide. And in V2V there, you can see the little triangles showing the little warning things and a pop-up showing you that you need an RSA key pair there. It just basically shows that there aren't any on those. You can still assign them and then add them later. Slide, if you try to run. Next slide, please. There you go. Try to run a plan without the RSA key. It'll basically give you the error and you cancel it and add the key and go on. All right, that's it. On to providers.
All right, thanks, Dan. So great sprint for providers. I'm going to call out a couple of nice changes from OpenStack, Overt, and containers. Next slide. We had a great distribution of pull requests across all the providers, but Overt and OpenStack's where the majority of the work was done. Next slide. On the OpenStack side, they added a usability enhancement to not show VMs that are already attached to a volume in that volume form. And so you don't end up with some weird cases where you're trying to attach a VM to the same volume twice. So good usability enhancement there. On Overt, we fixed graph refresh to prevent it from assigning VMs to the wrong folder or resource pool. If you had duplicate UUIDs, it was possible that you could be assigning VMs to a folder in the wrong EMS, and so we fixed that one up. On OpenShift, there was a spec test regression when we upgraded to a newer kube client version. They got rid of a class, and one of the specs was using that, and so we fixed that to use the right one. And on the KubeVert side, there was a refresh bug where it turned out that parse was never called on the initial full refresh, and so you would not see the majority of the inventory for KubeVert, and so got that fixed up, and now everything's good there. And that's it for providers. Over to Tina for Automate.
Thanks, Adam. Good morning. We had 11 PRs merged this sprint. Fabian added a retry to the check VM transforms automate method. In slow environments, the Vert V2V wrapper may take a few seconds to start Vert V2V and to create the save file. This change gives Vert V2V additional startup time to help avoid transformation failures. Billy Fitz added quota support for disk resize. Patrick added an automate domain lock check, which prevents the UI from allowing an import into a locked domain. The rake task functionality has not changed. Lucy added a new automate method type for external tower providers in job and workflow templates. This is not yet feature complete, as this enhancement requires changes to multiple repos, for which Lucy currently has PRs under review. That's it for automate. Next slide, and over to Joe.
Thank you, Tina. So a total of 42 PRs were merged this sprint in the platform space, many of which were just changes made by Joe R. across multiple repositories to improve the accuracy of our README files. Joe also made a change to bump the Ruby version, and some of those PRs are listed here on the slide. Keenan and Nickel are working on a project to help track and report performance that is maintained in the ManageIQ performance Git repository, which could be valuable for the community developers. Keenan made 3 enhancements for the ManageIQ performance repository. He started work to introduce a memory profiler. He added support for static pages that do not have any queries, and he added a configuration option for including SQL queries for log-only mode. Keenan also introduced an enhancement that adds virtual attributes for columns that are showing up in reports. Again, this sprint, we continue to see improvements in our test infrastructure, with Libor making a PR to support more regions and factories. That's going to be extremely helpful. Yuri cleaned up overly verbose output from one of our specs copy report structure, and Keenan disabled the auto-loading of the MIQ performance config file for developers of from a developer's home directory. Next slide, please. There we go. Platform-associated bug fixes this sprint. Nick fixed a bug related to software updates by raising a notification for repositories that failed to enable. JOR fixed a bug that allows embedded Ansible operations to continue to work even if an appliance is moved into a different zone.
Right.
Joe also fixed a bug that was introduced when the Ansible worker was renamed in a previous release. Keenan fixed confusing output from the fixauth script, and Keenan also fixed 2 issues to improve the EVM status output. Libor fixed 2 issues related to reporting in the ManageIQ performance repository. And lastly, Yuri fixed 2 bugs related to log collection. One where logs were missing the Postgres config file directory completely, and a second where the appliance console was not logging database configuration errors. That's it for the platform team. On to documentation.
Hi, in this latest sprint, we had 7 PRs merged, all of which were enhancements. Some highlights among them. We've updated the high availability guide with revisions to direct users to deploy appliances with extra unpartitioned disks. We've updated LDAP to add a note about the group membership setting to use multi-value LDAP. And then downstream, we've added an additional procedure to the migration guide for HA environments and updated the support metrics to add vSphere 6.7 support. That's it.
Okay, that's the end of the Sprint 101 review. Next review will be on January 9th after the holidays. Hope everyone has a great holiday season and comes back refreshed and ready to go. Thank you.